Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. 8 inexpensive but masculine fragrances for men. And when I see a video title like this, I always think the same thing. And I've seen a few of them out there. I always think, okay, what we're going to get is we are going to get flooded with a lot of old school 70s and 80s fragrances that are now out of date, so they're quite inexpensive. But you know what? They are masculine because fragrances back then all tended to be masculine. It's a great hack, right? But I'm aware of that. So I have not done that. There is one old school fragrance on this list. I tried to put as many different kinds. Most of them are very modern, but there's some woody, there's some leather. There is that one old school one, but most of them are fantastic and they are all good priced. Fragrance number 1. This is Lalique Encre Noire Extreme. Okay, so I've had the Lalique Encre Noire Sport for like 4 years, and this one is challenging, right? It took me a couple of years to get used to it. Now I'm fine with it. But what the interesting thing about this line is, one's called a Sport, one's called Extreme, and then there's the regular one. Just ignore all that. It's all about the accord. So these are all woody aromatics, with the woodiness being vetiver, and the aromatic is a cypress note, a very prominent one. So think fresh, evergreen cypress. But each of these fragrances have the third accord being very different. The third accord for this one is citrus. This is not the one I'm talking about today. This is a citrus accord, so grapefruit. Then you've got the regular Encre Noire. The third accord there is like an earthy, musky accord. This one is amber. So it is complete. This one is beautiful. The amber is it's perfect for this because I found with the Sport, you're already getting super fresh from the cypress, right? And then you're adding some bergamot and grapefruit to it. So it gets too fresh and it overrides the woodiness. The amber just brings everything right down. So instead of you having, a lot of citrus to go with the woody aromatic, this is 2 resinous notes. Frankincense or olibanum and benzoin. So you get a little very mild, sweet amount of amberiness that makes this one complete. It is a great performance, $30 price range. Everything about this one is good. Fragrance number 2 is the old school fragrance. This is Aramis by Aramis. Now the reason this one is on here is I have done 3 masculine videos of some kind in the last year or so. And every time I do one, someone always goes, what about Aramis? Right? So that's not going to happen this time because I don't do it because I only have this 15 milliliter bottle, but this is what the bottle looks like just in miniature form. But people want to hear about it because it is an old school classic. Right, so this is a chypre. There's a different kind of style than you're going to get with a lot of the old school ones. Chypre is a French word. It means cypress. And cypress is just like one giant island of moss. That's basically all it is. Just one big bush, right? And so this is a chypre. So there's a lot of oak moss in this. But there's also a lot of leather. There's patchouli and there's myrrh. And I don't know if you're familiar with all of those notes, but all 4 are quite dark. But what saves this and what makes it really, really nice is the aldehydes. And aldehydes is an old-fashioned note that was used back in the day, and it makes everything a little bit lighter. And this really needs the aldehydes because it allows all of those dark notes to breathe, and surprisingly approachable even for you younger guys. Fragrance number 3 is Perry Ellis Midnight. Now, the one thing is good for me about being a small YouTuber with a very limited number of resources is I pay really close attention to all the suggestions in the comments and to other fragrance YouTube channels, and so I'm like, okay, that one is good. And then I will target certain fragrances that I think are really underpriced. This is one of them. This is like a $35, $40 range at the discounters. This has a 4.69 Fragrantica rating at the moment. I have only seen one 4.7 ever. Now, this is not a clone. That's one of the other things that I've noticed. Yeah, you can get good buys on clones, but after a while you're like, yeah, it's not the same quality. It's not a clone, although it is very similar to Azzaro's Most Wanted. They both came out in the same year. I find it hard to believe that these guys are going to be able to clone another fragrance in less than a year. I've never tried Most Wanted, but I do have Wanted by Night, and you can definitely, they were definitely going for something in that Azzaro Wanted line for sure. There's definitely some similarities, but this one is not quite as dark, and it is a little bit more sweet. And the Most Wanted is the most popular in that line. And so the Wanted by Night has tobacco. There's no tobacco here, but what you get a fruity mandarin. You do get a fruity bit. You also get quite a bit of amber, and then you get the cinnamon. So the combination of the three with very good performance. Fragrance number 4 is Sergio Tacchini Uomo. Now, the interesting thing about this one came out right around the early 2000s. Funny thing about the early 2000s, I don't know what they were thinking, but they seemed to like that citrus accord at the top. So a lot of citrus. And then they would put almost anything with it. So you get CH212, which was very popular in the early 2000s. That was a lot of citrus and green notes. Then you get something like Dunhill Desire Red. That was a lot of citrus and vanilla. And then Dunhill Desire Blue, citrus and marine. But that's just Dunhill. There's a whole bunch of those fragrances that had the same kind of citrus first style. That's what this one is. And it's a pleasant. So there's a lot of citrus here, and then it's lavender. And lavender is a lovely note. So this is not, normally when you think old school, you can kind of think lavender, but that's usually lavender and oak moss, and that's barbershop. This is not barbershop. It has lavender, but it has a very prominent citrus to go with it. And then it has a fair amount of musk too. So this one, I mean, the scent here is fantastic. It's a very inexpensive fragrance. This one is about $20. And unfortunately, and this is a crime against humanity because, yeah, it's $20 and the performance is not great. So that is something to consider if you do like the sound of a citrus, musky lavender. But, you know, if you overspray, spray on clothes, I always say that for underperforming fragrances, you can get away with it. But I mean, I'd love to get an original bottle of this to give it a try, and I'll bet you it's fantastic. Fragrance number 5, this one has to be on it. It's just the rule. This is called Black by Mercedes-Benz. It's a $50 price range. This one is very modern. This is a masculine vanilla. This has benzoin and incense. This is like, yeah, you can have your vanilla and still be masculine too kind of fragrance. I know I talk about this a ton, but if you are doing a video on inexpensive masculine fragrances, this just has to be on the list. That's the rules. Next up, we have F Black by Salvatore Ferragamo. This is a fragrance that was made wildly popular by Jeremy Fragrance, who loved this and loved this style of fragrance. And then it became, I think, overrated. The problem now is that this is now underrated. And I know this because I have done this myself. When I got this, I really liked it. I loved it, actually. You know, I was pretty new to fragrances, but I thought it was a great scent. And this is one that I've hardly worn, but every time I go back and I spray it on, like, this is good. You know, like I really like it. And I really wish that I could wear it more. Yeah, so this one is a sweet lavender fragrance with pepper, right? Jeremy Fragrance liked that style. This is also powdery. I would be remiss if I did not mention the powderiness here. It's definitely powdery. It's similar to a couple of other style fragrances that Jeremy made popular. But if you have a bottle of this, and if you're a collector, I'm sure you do, spray it on. And yeah, performance is great too. Performance is fine, you know, no problem. Spray it on, and you'll remember just how good it actually was. Next up, we have Bijan for men, and this one is kind of interesting. I have 3 fragrances in this style. This is an old school leather style, very masculine. You wouldn't know it by the bottle. But that old school style, this one is the most potent. It sure doesn't look like it, but it is. And yet, this is the one that I always reach for. This is the one that I like the most. Think leather and oak moss. And really, I guess there's some cloves in here too, but everything about this is quite dark. But it's very, very masculine. Now, the neat thing about this one is going for, I think it's like $30 for this size, is 75 milliliter. This is what I recommend for most people. And I've never seen this before. You can get, I think it's Fragrance Net, but it's one of the discounters in North America. You can get a 30 milliliter of this for $6. For this style of fragrance, I mean, it's one that, if you're a collector, you're not going to wear that much, but if you're feeling like super, full of yourself, super macho, like I'm ready to take on the world, I recommend $6. I mean, you can't beat that. But either way, it is a really good fragrance, and it has surprisingly strong performance. Finally, we have Fragrance World's Alpha. This is the only clone on the list, and I didn't want to cheat by putting a whole bunch of clones on here for an inexpensive video. The reason this is on here is, and I have about, 40 to 50 clones. There's 2 or 3 clones that don't feel like clones. It doesn't feel like I'm cheating when I wear this. It really doesn't. Everything about this feels super high quality, from the bottle to the performance to the scent itself. This is a clone of a Ben Fume by Tom Ford. It is a woody, smoky, a resinous sweet fragrance. So think benzoin. There's a fair amount of that. So warmer resins. There's 4 woody notes. And I love the scent. And I know there are some people out there that are probably not going to like the scent. I think maybe like 25% of people. I think most people will. I don't find there's anything really not to like about it. It's one of those ones where I put it on, I really enjoy it, and I'm like, I'm puzzled that people, are out there that don't like it. But anyway, it's super high quality. It's phenomenal quality for a clone, and it's definitely masculine. A Ben Fume, anything with a heavy smoky accord is masculine. Anyway, so there you go, guys. Thanks for watching.